Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we're hoping to introduce all of you to something new to watch, usually going week to week. So make sure you subscribe and you'll watch some of the best shows on TV. We got a great batting average. We covered almost everything that won those Emmys this year. Sure, we missed some time. Smoke was not going to get any Emmy nominations. But in general, if you're trying to find your way through the deluge of things to watch, let us do that work for you. Subscribe and you'll know what's new and upcoming. Of course, currently we are watching Task. And in this particular episode, Darren and I will be breaking down the season finale of Alien Earth, an episode called The Real Monsters. We'll also be discussing the 2-episode premiere of the new FX series called The Lowdown, also available on Disney and Hulu for anybody who's been watching this Alien Earth coverage. This pilot episode, by the way, if you watch nothing else of this show, what a hilarious first episode of this show. For anyone who does not have Disney or Hulu, you can also watch this show on FX if you're in the United States on the network itself. So install the FX Now app or go to fxnow.com, the website, or simply go to your cable box and set your DVRs to record this very entertaining show. But of course, most people stream things and it's available on Hulu. Honestly, I have other things I want to talk to Darren about as well. I'm going to be seeing the new Paul Thomas Anderson film starring Leonardo DiCaprio, One Battle After Another. Also a neo-noir, by the way, a comedic neo-noir no less. Also probably in the lineage of this new series, The Lowdown. So I have questions to ask Darren about his relationship with Paul Thomas Anderson in general and whether he's going to see the film. Plus, there's so many new series to catch up on, new releases, that I have some shout outs for some of that coverage, which is soon to come. Just one that I'll introduce at this moment, because I know Darren doesn't watch this show, but Slow Horses is back. So anybody who watches Slow Horses, I know I've had multiple emails in the past asking, will we be covering Slow Horses? It is possible that with The Lowdown, which is pretty much a hang of a series, there may be room there for me to throw in Slow Horses as well. So let's see. I would expect I'll be touching on that series at least every few weeks or so, and definitely for the finale. So that's back. There's other series that I want to discuss with Darren and gauge his interest level. I'll save that for our conversation. And of course, news here on the podcast of what series we will be covering and not, because there's some news as to something we were planning to cover that's been pulled from the schedule. So given the fact that I have a bunch of things we want to discuss, including that new series, I'm going to maximize that conversation with Darren by doing the Alien Earth plot breakdown by myself. And then, of course, we will segue directly into my conversation with Darren and see how he landed with this finale of the season as well. This final episode of the season is called The Real Monsters and is directed by Dana Gonzalez, who's directed most of the recent, more action-heavy episodes of the series, and written, as I believe the entire series has been, by Noah Hawley himself. So as the episode kicks off, Arthur's corpse is on the beach, chilling. Seems like he's, just needs a margarita to make the scene complete, minus all the blood, of course, and the crabs. The adult xenomorph wanders over just to check in. Oh, this is a dead body. And who's this over here? A little crustacean bonding time. Are you my mommy? Then we see Sylvia. She has made her way to the grave sites of the children. Apparently, this is something she does regularly. We see those flowers being laid on the graves, completely unaware that her husband's corpse is not that far away. When the xenomorph shows up, and just as it's about to bite her face off, this security detail comes to her rescue I think they're using non-lethal rounds here because the alien just runs off. I don't see any kind of acid spray or anything. As a matter of fact, it probably would have killed Sylvia if that was the case. So I'm not sure if they should be using non-lethal rounds at this particular moment, but maybe they haven't been clued in that things are really going badly there at the facility. We find out that Weyland-Yutani has knocked out the communications on the entire island. Adam gives the full breakdown of what's going on. We don't have containment of the adult xenomorph. Our communication is mostly down. Things are looking really bad. And even though we currently have the hybrids, those cages probably aren't built to hold them. So you probably need to plan to get out of here. It's interesting at this moment that Cavalier, of course, has been always like this very youthful looking character. And I guess he's always looked this way, but I do feel like it's especially pronounced in this particular episode that he looks very haggard. So he no longer looks that young anymore. He looks like someone who's trying too hard to look young, which is probably more true to his psychology. And by the way, as absolutely repulsive a character, of course we love to hate, but honestly was hoping that even worse would happen to him in this particular episode. He, of course, does not want to hear that he should leave. He wants someone to fix these problems for him. And he is like a child, belligerently waiting for someone to fix everything. I guess there's some commentary yet again of this particular billionaire class, certain folks in this particular sphere that Noah Hawley is obviously critical of, who just assume that why isn't everything just to their expectations? Why can't they just think something in their head and it just doesn't happen in real life? And of course, that is the case here for Cavalier. And we find out that he is quite a genius, considering he was 6 years old when he built his first synthetic robot. So maybe he is frustrated with how slowly things progress for good reason. He's reminiscing on all his toys that are now broken. Yes, the hybrids, that didn't go so well. And all the different failed experiments. And they want to take back his toys. Wayland with Yutani want to take back his toys, and he doesn't want it. It's a very much of a little hissy fit he has here. But he and the island, oh, Eileen, if you could just talk to me, if I could just know it was in your mind. So this is the one toy that he still wants to play with. How dire do things have to get before reality sets in? The hybrids are in that cage. And even though they're all a little bit at odds with each other at first, Wendy is able to rally the troops. They need to work together. They're in that cell because they can't be kids anymore, but they won't allow them to be adults. She says they're ghosts. But what do ghosts do? Ghosts can haunt houses. And of course, we know that Marcy/Wendy can be a ghost in the machine. Why she has this power, we still don't understand. So ghosts can scare people. We've been afraid of them, but they should be afraid of us. Not only because she can scare them by manipulating the computers, but because she is chittering out sweet nothings to her pet xenomorph, who's back on the compound and is killing soldiers left and right. She is in all the computers. We see her face pop up on screens at multiple times. A little bit silly, to be honest. And she's listening in on all of these conversations, including one between Kirsch and Cavalier. Cavalier blames Kirsch for not being able to contain everything. Not that Cavalier's been trying to contain things at all. Kirsch starts reprimanding Cavalier, saying that your ADHD apparently is making your decision-making or affecting your decision-making, and you have a lack of impulse control. That may explain some of the stupid moves that Cavalier makes here in this episode, but I guess it could just be convenient writing here as well. And during this conversation, Wendy knocks out their communications. Wendy's messing with Sylvia too, playing back all the recordings of the children before they were put into the hybrids. She scares one of the security details into thinking that the elevator's about to self-destruct. All around haunted house stuff. Meanwhile, Hermit's also in a different holding cell with Morrow. He starts to nurse Morrow. Morrow goes, leave me alone. This is probably the best I'll feel all day. And they do have an interesting interaction where he asks Hermit, how does that new lung feel for you? And he says, it feels good, doesn't it? To be more human than human. There always is a price, though, isn't there? And Joe says, everything. And Morrow says, everything doesn't begin to cover it. A guard shows up and Morrow way too easily is able to take this guy out. Everybody on this entire series, especially in the Prodigy Corps, are terrible, absolutely terrible at their jobs. I just want to shout that out. None of this would have happened if these people were half competent at what they were doing. Morrow is now out and sneaks up on Kirsch, but we know Kirsch is not going to let him get the drop on him. And they have a pretty good fight, but very brief. But I have to say, and this will kind of be my criticism is starting to fold into my review here. This really felt like for something been anticipated for so long, it is pretty fun to watch, but it is very quick and it is not impactful. There's just not enough. I guess the outcome of the show doesn't really hinge on this relationship anymore, even though it seemed to be central at one point. I think just in general, the focus of the show has become diluted, to say the least. And these things that were thrilling, honestly, when we were watching early in the show, don't have any weight here. And I really felt like there was very little to this interaction. Neither one of them even dies. It's not even like a fight to the death. Morrow does, however, break Kirsch's back. And just as he's about to take sadistic pleasure in torturing him, one of the creatures escapes and gives Kirsch just enough time to get the upper hand, just the hand, on Murrow. It turns out the real Achilles heel of all these human villains, monologuing. The synthetic would never make that mistake. You just kill first. If you have anything funny to say, you save it for afterwards. Another idiot here, Cavalier, shows up at the holding pens with all the hybrids, with one security guard, very confident that everybody's going to behave because Daddy tells them to. He has a story to tell. His dad was a drunk and a bully and was intimidated by the genius son that he had accidentally become a father to. Someone so brilliant they built their first synthetic at the age of 6. And he made someone very different than his dad. Someone very posh and intelligent. And one day when he came home, his dad was dead and the synth was there. And his synth simply became his dad. And of course, without saying so explicitly, one of the few things that's not explicitly said here on the show, I think we assume that Adam is that father, or at least a version of it, maybe an upgraded version of it. Then he has another hissy fit and tells them that they're ruining his plans. They're supposed to be his floor models for this new developing extension of life. Upload your consciousness into my hybrids at a low cost. I wonder what the cost is because currency in this show doesn't seem to make any sense. I'll save that for later. Nibs doesn't like to be called a floor model or being threatened and attacks this security guard and probably removes his jaw again. She seemed to enjoy that last time. Cavalier freezes up at this moment and Wendy simply says, run, like run, idiot, run away. She tells the other hybrids that they are supposed to play hide and seek and tells them who they're supposed to be finding, but nobody touches her brother. So like I mentioned, this is so dumb. Your manipulation of these hybrids was working, right? Wendy was on your side, looked up to you. The other hybrids, or at least some of them, were competing for his affection. And if he could get Wendy and Curly, for example, to line up with him, the others will fall in line as well and tell them, look, what we need to do is get off this island. Hey, bring your pet alien with us. Let's go. Let's get off this. Let's get on a ship out of here before Weyland Yutani takes over the entire place. This is not the right strategy to threaten them and call them obsolete. So again, stupid CEO. Smee and Slightly, during their hide and seek, eventually find Kirsch and Murrow. They tie them both up. Kirsch doesn't like this, of course. He's like, here, use this to tie up Murrow. Oh, me too? What do you mean? Slightly does at least get to smash Murrow in the face. I thought he was going to kill him here. Once again, I thought more people were going to die here than actually do. Meanwhile, Adam has found Joe and is luring him back to the sheep alien under the pretense that he's actually going to meet with Marcy and with Cavalier, and he has some kind of deal, a bargain, to get them off the island. Of course, this is a lie. When Joe arrives, the cage is open, and the sheep, and more importantly, the alien, is loose. I had asked Darren in an earlier recap episode if possibly the alien doesn't kill what it goes into, and that just, kind of takes over temporarily. And we know that it obviously can go into dead bodies as well, as we saw this dead cat in the very first episode of the season with the eye inside of its head. But it does seem that the sheep just collapses and is not wandering around afterwards. So I guess the alien does indeed kill its host, which of course is extra bad news for Joe and his sweet brain and his living eyeball. Joe, actually very quick on his feet here, jumps into the cage that was holding the creature before. Not so smart that when he jumps out, because the alien is very smart, goes into the feeder to get back in there, but presumably could not have escaped that way. So Joe just needed to hop out of there and slam it shut behind him. So smart for a minute and then dumb thereafter. The alien is also dumb in the fact that it could have locked the cage from the outside to trap Joe inside and then gotten into the feeder and ta-da. So neither Joe nor the eye are that smart. Wendy shows up just in time, and this is just the kind of silly plotting that drives me nuts. She grabs this eye thing and chucks it across the room, but doesn't squish it or contain it or crush it or throw it into the cage. Just throws it aside so that it can continue to run around the room. So many decisions in this episode. Here's the critique. It's coming. But so many decisions in this episode are just plot for plot's sake and don't actually make sense. Like, these are not things that people would do. They have to be a little more clever in making us believe these scenarios at all, not just that people are really dumb and they do really dumb things, and it just doesn't make any sense. And this is just another example of it. Adam shows up and throws her across the room. He's a robot. We already knew this. Come on, we already knew. He has a couple of funny zingers here where he goes, I told Boy Cavalier. I keep saying Kid Cavalier. I think I've said that multiple times. I keep thinking of Kid Cudi. I think that's what's stuck in my head. But Boy Cavalier, I told him that having kids that never grow up is a terrible idea. An eternity of Are We There Yet? Pretty funny, buddy. Pretty funny. But it turns out Wendy gets to make him stop because he's on the Wi-Fi with the rest of them. Man, if he was just in airplane mode, this wouldn't have happened. This is a pretty cool visual effect. I think it's a combination of CGI and the actor himself performing, but the way that he's completely frozen, except for his eyes moving in, back and forth, very entertaining, as silly as this plot point is. There's a pretty good conversation here between Joe and Wendy when he says, I'm sorry about what happened on the ship. I'm sorry I attacked Nibs. I was just trying to protect people. And she starts overreading this, going like, I'm not, she's not a person. Nibs not a person. She's a thing. Are you going to call me it? And he's like, that's not what I'm trying to say. It's just that I had to make a decision and the world is complicated. You don't know that yet, but the world is complicated. Something we tell our kids all the time, right? And she says, don't tell me it's complicated. That's what powerless people say to make doing nothing okay. She also says that she likes the aliens because they're honest about their nature. And Joe says, they're predators. We're food to them. And she says, you're food to them. And then she stops herself because here we go. We get to the crux of this entire season of show and maybe this entire project in general. She says, I don't know what I am. So how can she evolve beyond these limitations of being a person, but not being a machine? And of course, all the battles between Murrow and Kirsch, for example, representing again the machine element, the human element. And then, of course, what Marcy/Wendy is trying to do is have some autonomy, have some control in her life, when in reality, everybody around her is morally compromised, is pressured into doing the wrong thing by blackmail, by an allegiance to a corporation, an allegiance to a company, a philosophy, all things that they can't control. And she simply wants to have some autonomy in her decision making, which of course we all do. And unfortunately, over time, growing up oftentimes is accepting how limited our choices really are. What choice is she going to make? Hang in there, guys. In 3 years, when the next season comes, we'll answer that question, possibly, or we'll have another cliffhanger for you. Practically the last surviving security members, of course, they're Joe's former team, have made it to the lab looking for Boy Cavalier for this rescue. And we finally find out what this plant thing is. It's basically a giant Venus flytrap and eats one of the security staff. Of course, it's the woman. And the rest are captured by Nibs. Cavalier almost gets eaten by an alien when Wendy and Joe show up and Wendy calls the alien away to go murder some other people. It's weird that she judged slightly earlier on, by the way, when she's talking to Smee, that slightly had murdered somebody, so he was different. And Smee goes like, no, he's still one of us. You have to remember that. They made us. He's not bad. They made us this way. But it's interesting that she has that judgmental moment because she's okay with having the alien go and kill. This started last week, by the way. It's not even in the moment. That alien has killed so many people, and most of them are just security guards doing their jobs. But when you are more closely complicit, I guess, the distance, whether you had a direct hand in the death, it makes you a worse person. I don't know if I buy any of that. And I'm not sure the show wants to deal with that. Meanwhile, we find out that the alien, made its escape, by the way. So multiple chances that Marcy/Wendy had to kill the alien and just kicked it a couple times like a hacky sack around the lab. It finally did escape and hoofed it all the way out to the beach where it finds Arthur. I like the very quick and just like pop this eyeball out. Very skilled at this particular activity. I guess he's had to do it so many times. He or she, I should say. I don't want to misgender the eyeball. And I guess he goes, all right, not the ideal body. It's starting to decompose and may even have a couple of crabs crawling around inside of it. But I guess it'll do. I guess in this way we get to keep Arthur on the show, this actor. This poor actor, when the show comes back, is going to have to be in like severe decomposing makeup. And it's probably going to progress as this 8 or 9 month production schedule for this series continues. Will have to be slowly more and more decomposed. This poor guy. However, he's married to Zazie Beetz, so not such a poor guy after all. Good on him. And as we get to the end, the gang is all together, all the surviving humans. Sylvia has been brought there as well. They're all inside one of these cages. Everybody has survived. Crawling around on the outside of the cage, very Jurassic World-like, is the xenomorph with the cute little baby with it. Oh, such a adorable little alien. I like when Slightly shows up to fill in everybody on the details of how things are progressing. Plant Monster and the Eye Thing got away. That's right. We've been calling it Plant Monster and the Eye Thing. Everybody watching this show has got the same names for these creatures. And they ask, what do we do now? And Wendy says, now we rule. As the Weyland-Yutani forces storm the island, we see many airships coming in. And Pearl Jam's Animal comes up on the soundtrack. I'd rather be with an animal. I guess rather be with an animal than with humans, who are the real monsters of the title. So I'll leave the question as to what this sets up for season 2 for my conversation with Darren. But just my general opinions of how I feel about this. In general, man, cliffhanger season finales are for cowards. Cowards. I'm just calling it out. I am sick of it. I will not put up with it anymore. No cliffhanger season finales. Unless you have, if you have a cliffhanger season finale and you are in production for season 2 of the show, and that's going to come out within the next year. It's got to be not even a year. We're talking 8 months, 9 months out. If you can get another season of this show out, I will find it somewhat acceptable if it is somehow satisfying in other ways. This season finale answers nothing, left everything open, even the fates of the individual characters to next season for a season we may not even get. This is not okay. I'm just saying this is not okay. I'm not okay with this anymore. I also just have in general an issue with a lot of the plot choices just to get from scene to scene. These are not the decisions that even, these people, okay, fine, they're idiots. That's what we're supposed to believe. I got it. I understand the joke of it all, that these really powerful people are dumb, but they had to have achieved success in some way. They wouldn't always be dumb continuously. They wouldn't care or never care about their own well-being in these circumstances. It just doesn't make any sense. And I also think that there is a moral line the show has about whether killing a person is a line that you don't cross. And yet, through neglect or through intention, Wendy is killing many people, not only Wendy, but the other hybrids as well. And to say, well, but they're kids, they don't understand the consequences of their actions. That's one thing. But to say, no, this person is good, that person is bad, when they're all killing other people, I don't think the show understands its own moral judgment. Okay, I have even more criticism, but I will save some of this that I want to pick apart in more detail with Darren. So let's get into his thoughts on this episode of television and the season in general. All right, Darren, I think we may have many things to talk about. So I did all the preamble before you joined, and I also did about a 20-minute breakdown of the plot, but I wanted to save some of the digging into some of this and getting your reaction, of course, to this episode. Before we get to all of that, I have a bunch of topics to raise with you. And of course, I also want to ask you about last week's episode, which I didn't get your reaction to that one also. We'll get it on the books. Maybe this current episode tainted your opinion of last week, but we'll see.
Yeah, how are you, Victor? Yeah, I'm trying to wait for a moment to butt in there.
And welcome, Darren. Sorry, I should have had a full introduction there for you. I have so many things to talk about. I wanted to jump right in.
I've missed you last week. Woke up and there was already a pod there, so I was like, oh, that's okay. I don't have to talk about that episode, which was my least favorite episode of the Alien Earth series until last night.
Until last night, yes, agreed. First of all, some really quick announcements. Superman was released. It's weird how these streaming debuts on these streaming platforms come out. They announce them just days ahead of time. I guess they want, if someone's about to rent the movie, they don't want to spoil their, the purchase or the rental digitally. So they announce it just a couple of days before. But anybody out there who's been wanting to catch up on the Superman film, it's out on Max. We discussed it here on the podcast. Darren was more positive on it than I was. I very much loved the cast, but check it out. It's available on Max. And in my podcast with Sona, I mentioned to everybody, hey, at the end of that, when you play it through, and they recommend, if your family's with you, to start watching Peacemaker, don't do it. Peacekeeper? What is it? What is he called? Peacemaker?
Peacemaker. Sure. Yeah, I'm up to date with Peacemaker. It's a great show. It's very family friendly, I think, isn't
it? Yes, very family friendly. Yeah, I think that's a joke. Everybody, do not watch that after you watch Superman with your kids. Don't keep watching Peacemaker afterwards, regardless if HBO Max recommends it or not. A couple more show notes here. 28 Years Later is on Max. I'm sorry, is on Netflix now. So that's been put out. And Darren, are you planning to watch that one again?
Oh, I don't think so. No, no. But I'll watch the next one. But yeah, I had a really good time with that one in the cinema, and I don't need to see Ray Fiennes with his cleaning his skulls again.
Or the Alpha.
Oh, the Alpha, yeah. Well, that was always funny when that came on screen and filled the whole screen.
Right. Another big piece of news, of course, I've been promoting that the next show we're going to be covering here on the podcast is going to be the Jessica Chastain series, The Savant, on Apple TV Plus. And literally just days before it was going to premiere this very Friday, they have decided to pull it, given the current climate. I guess I don't know what the material in the show would be. I'm not sure why this would be inflammatory, but I just like to think that they listened to the podcast and I said, well, I have too many things to cover right now. So they just really did it. So I didn't have to have too many things on my plate at once.
I've boycotted Disney Plus, right? So that was last week. This week I'm boycotting Apple TV. Because of this terrible decision, because I really wanted to watch this show too. And my wife was interested in that. She likes Jessica Chastain. And the trailer was cool and it seemed like a really good topic for conversation, and it seems very apt. I think it's really sad that they've just pulled it.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake to be. Once again, I have not seen the material. Critics had seen it, by the way. Critics got early screeners, and for some reason, Apple asked them to not release their reviews until the day before the series was coming out. So I was waiting to hear the reviews. But of course, like I mentioned, the critics have seen it, and then they pulled the plug at the last minute. So once again, I feel like they thought that the critics might pitch the show in a way that maybe was inflammatory. But to your point, I think that this is based on real world events. It's an actual group inside of the FBI that goes and infiltrates these organizations. And honestly, I feel like, did they think they were going to inflame the right wing? Because this is obviously not a right wing attack here in the United States, but 90% of these attacks within terrorist attacks that are homegrown are usually within white supremacist groups. So this is something that is very pressing. And by the way, regardless if you're on the right or the left, the idea that people are being indoctrinated or even recruited via the internet is obviously something that is happening and could be really interesting topic, given the fact that we are seeing real world consequences to it. And yeah, I think it's a very cowardly thing to just pull it out. But maybe it's not like 2 years that they shelve this thing. They might just wait. Maybe there is a good time to put this out in the near future where we can have a healthy conversation about it. I hope, but we'll see.
Yeah, it seems so silly. And it also seems like a bit of hubris as well, saying that this show is going to be so amazing that everybody's going to watch it and it's going to cause all these inflammatory situations or possibly inflame these situations. I mean, come on, it's just a TV show. Let us watch it.
Agreed. But I mean, 2 million people a night watch Jimmy Kimmel Live, and they've turned that into a whole entire political movement here. So it's, it's that it probably would get more viewers than Kimmel. And that's been the president can't talk about anything else. So I'm not sure if that would be the case, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I was looking forward to South Park last week as well, and that was delayed as well, which I think is possibly connected to all these things.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely connected to these things. One more thing I want to bring up is that I will be watching in IMAX, no less. Tomorrow night, I've already bought my tickets, one battle after another. And I was curious when I had texted you earlier. I know your son's been wanting to see this movie, and I'm pretty sure, first of all, a question to you, if you plan to see it this weekend, if you're going to watch it with him, what are your viewing plans? But then when I brought up, hey, are you rewatching any Paul Thomas Anderson, which I have been, by the way, do you want to have a little section about it? And you seem to be pretty standoffish about PTA, which I understand, by the way. So, but curious to get are you excited for this? Do you plan to see it soon? Is your son still excited to see it? And yeah, what's your relationship with PTA in general?
Yeah, so I was talking about this morning. My son's not. He's more into the Coen brothers now. So he's moved
Okay,
from
interesting.
Christopher Nolan into the Coen brothers. I was floating it with my wife. She's like, who's this P.T. Anderson? I don't know who it is. And I was
Right.
like, Boogie Nights, Punch Drunk Love, come on. So she's on board. So yes, we're going to go see it. It's a
Nice.
long weekend here this weekend. So we're
Oh,
going to go
nice.
see it this weekend. And I've seen a couple of 5-star reviews. So I'm very excited. But I'm a
Yeah.
bit mixed on the past of P.T. Anderson. Punch Drunk Love is probably my favorite, and it's the one that I've most rewatched out of all his films. Also, Boogie Nights is really fantastic as well. I have very fond memories of watching that. I can't watch There Will Be Blood or The Master again, even though I really enjoy those films. For some reason, they're just so much of a visual feast that I can't find the time to rewatch them or the mood to kind of delve into that. I haven't seen The Phantom Thread. I haven't seen this other one, Inherent Vice. I haven't seen that. Yeah, and I saw Licorice Pizza was the last one I saw, which was fine. Nothing really happened, but it was fine. And I really liked that because of Philip Seymour Hoffman's son.
Yep.
So,
In The
yeah,
Walk. We just saw him in The Walk. Also, you saw that, didn't
which
you?
we saw in The Walk, and he was fantastic in that too.
Yeah.
So, so I did like that. The other one, what's the other one that I'm thinking of? Magnolia, which I've seen a couple of times. Fantastic film, but again, I don't think I need to see that again. You hate it, okay? So yeah, that's my relationship with that director. Big fan of certain movies.
Yes, exactly. A couple of things that I find really interesting about him, by the way, is that there is such a cult around him. There are so many people that have him as their favorite filmmaker. And unlike the Coens, a huge fan of the Coens, by the way, I think what happened is that it's very interesting, by the way, to parallel them with the Coens. I grew up watching the Coen brothers films, like from the very first one. I saw Blood Simple when it was like on VHS, when I was like a teenager. So I saw them from like the very beginning. I saw their entire filmography. But at the same time, they did leave me a little cold. I was a little confused by their films as I was watching them. And then the really weird thing happened was that I saw, this is pretty late in their careers, one of their biggest successes, of course, financially as well, No Country for Old Men. And I watched No Country for Old Men, and all of a sudden it like unlocked all their films. I'm like, oh my God, there's like a devil in every one of their films. There's like some kind of religious, reference, some cross reference. It's either based on some biblical verse. And basically what it comes down to is that there is this real moral question that's being asked in all their films. Is there some grand design, or is it all arbitrary? And I was like, it unlocked all their filmography for me. And all of a sudden I was just like, oh my God, they're making the same movie over and over again in all these different genres. And the reason I bring that up is then PTA comes along much later on, obviously. And then I know people who have that relationship with PTA. And just like the Coen brothers, they watch the films and they're like, I really don't know what the movie's about, but man, it's so well made. I just like love how there's so much detail and there's so much precision in his filmmaking. But I'm like, yeah, but what is it about? Like, what is all this about? And his films, by the way, aren't the type of films that ask you to just watch them casually. Like, they ask you to engage with them. And I really felt like I was on the outside. And what I would say is, in the rewatch recently, that I have not unlocked. It's not like I watched a movie and all of a sudden everything got unlocked for me. It didn't happen. But what did happen is I did start to understand that he is making the same movie over and over again. And I started to understand what that film was. And maybe that will help you unlock some of these films for you that you don't like as much. And maybe this new one as well, which I haven't watched, so I can't say. But I think in general, it's about this, obviously found family, whether it's the porn shoot group of people who find each other, or whether it's the cult in The Master. But it's like people who are disenfranchised, have lost their way. They all have missing fathers or abusive fathers. They are all, kind of lost in America. And the American myth doesn't work for them. And they're looking for some alternate mythology. And then there's all the foibles of that. And The Master is probably the most important film in all of this. And maybe the most pertinent film, I think, in rewatching it in the current moment with all this populism around the world, where you see the Joaquin Phoenix character looking at this guy and laughing and being like, this guy's a con man, and yet wanting it to be true. And I think that says so much about the world we live in right now, that it's really, really powerful. So if you kind of like see all those films through that prism, I think it becomes like pretty clear what he's trying to say over and over again, until you get to Phantom Thread, which I know you haven't seen, and Licorice Pizza, which I was actually thinking about Licorice Pizza as I was watching The Lowdown, by the way, because it's just such a vibe movie. And it's a movie that I just really love because I just love the vibes of it. And it isn't as heavy as some of his other films have been. But The Phantom Thread is fantastic. By the way, my favorite of his films. You should definitely check it out. Definitely something to watch with your wife because it is like an investigation of what is a marriage. And it's really smart and funny and incredibly beautiful and really smart and a little disturbing. I got to tell you, by the time you kind of see where the film, it is like wildly romantic and a little disturbing where it all lands at the end. So I recommend you check that one out for sure.
That's really interesting. Yeah, The Master is the one that's sitting there waiting for me to rewatch. I see it there on my computer every now and again, and I'm like, oh, I've got to see that one, got to see that one. But yeah, looking forward to The Phantom Thread after you bigged it up so much. And
I
what
think
do
it's
you
on
think
HBO
of
Max right now. So
Okay, oh, I'll check it out. What do you think of Punch Drunk Love? Because I thought that was just so fascinating and so different of a movie. There's no movie like that, I think.
early on, I had a lot of problems with his films. I thought that Boogie Nights really incredibly well made, but too much of a pastiche. It's too much Altman. Obviously, big chunks of Scorsese in there, and
Yes.
yeah. So it was too much of him showing off. Like, hey, look, I saw all the movies of the '70s. I'm like, okay, I get it. So it was a little too much of that for me. I mean, maybe I was a little too old to you were younger than me, so you probably for me it was a little bit off-putting to try that hard. I hate Magnolias, which is just a remake of Shortcuts, another Altman movie, by the way. If people haven't seen Shortcuts, by the way, it's incredible. So check out Shortcuts. Magnolia, again, extremely self-indulgent, I think. It's funny that now critical consensus, people are rewatching it now in preparation of this movie. And they're like, wow, Magnolia is kind of much messier than I remember it. I'm like, yes, it was always a mess. But the performances are great. The music is great. The images are great, but it just didn't work for me. I mean, the Tom Cruise performance, absolutely incredible, by the way, but once again, didn't really work for me. But then, then he makes Punch Drunk Love, which at the time was a revelation. I loved seeing Adam Sandler's performance. I liked that it was a short movie. He has the Altman connection again. He's playing the Popeye love song, which of course Robert Altman directed, Popeye. But so there's all that going on. There's one thing that I hate in that movie, and maybe you can explain it for me because you've probably seen it more times than I have. The color sequences, like these breaks where he plays these. I just found like that was so out of place in the film, and really took me away from what I was really enjoying. So it's almost like if I could have a cut of the film with that out of it, then I probably would have liked it even more. I have only seen that film maybe twice, and I did not. I planned to have it as part of my rewatch, just haven't gotten around to it yet. And maybe that some of the stylistic stuff wouldn't bother me as much now. But I remember at the time, every time they would have this break, the color breaks in between the scenes, I was just rolling my eyes, like, get back to the movie.
That's interesting. Yeah, I do remember those, and I think it was just it's all about love, that movie. So I think it was just
I think this was to
that.
represent the emotion at the time, but once again, it was a little. I think, and I think he would even admit this. I think that he has become maybe more precise as a filmmaker, but he's not trying to shove his technique in your face anymore, which I think was what I like in his later films. All that is to say that, and a lot of the reviews that are coming in are saying this particular film, the one that's coming out tomorrow, is like a culmination of like it's the best reviews he's had in his career. So I'm very curious to see this, especially having liked his last two films very much.
I saw a trailer for this that was terrible, and then I saw a different trailer, which was fantastic. So I still don't know what it's about.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, what's got DiCaprio, Penn, Benicio del Toro. I mean, I'm in, and it's let's go. Let's see what it's all about.
All right, Darren, we have avoided the topic at hand as long as we can.
Oh, we got to do this, don't we?
Yeah. So tell me, maybe we start with episode 9. How did you like last week's episode in general?
Like I said, it was my least favorite episode up to then. And I think I liked it a little bit more than you. Hearing you talk about it, there was, a lot of distaste in your voice when you were recapping it. But overall, I kind of liked the action. There was a lot of action. I liked there was a lot of action, but towards the end, I didn't mind the Predator kind of stuff, but the Jurassic World
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
really just took me out of it. The whistling, the using the alien as a pet, I was not into it all. And we get more of that in this one. So yeah.
Yeah, that's where my distaste. It's really funny. I like almost I broke myself when I was doing the recap. As I was doing as I was doing the solo recap, I actually suddenly thought of Jurassic World in my head, and the moment that happened, I was like, "Oh man, I am so out on this right now."
Oh, it was a shocker, wasn't it? Yeah.
I turned myself off to my own recap. It's like I hadn't caught it in the moment, but as I was describing it in the podcast, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is Jurassic World. This is what we're doing." I got so upset.
Unbelievable. And it's a theme that is going to go into this next episode. The alien, the xenomorph, should be the most frightening thing to everybody involved.
Right.
And it's just been completely sidelined.
It's just hanging around.
Shocked at.
Yep. Yeah. It's a huge misstep. I completely agree. All right, I already did the episode breakdown, which you can listen to at your leisure when I publish this episode. I started off agnostic intentionally, but some of the negativity crept in there. So I have a bunch of questions for you. The first one is just the opening scene. So I love the opening scene, though, the look of it. But what do you think of this alien and the crab talking to each other? What do they have to talk about? What does one crustacean say to another?
Bizarre. Yeah, I did like the image. I mean, it was an awful image. Poor old Arthur. One thing that I did, it actually really hurt me to see Arthur treated the way he was last episode. Really. We finally get the chest bursting scene or another one or one in graphic detail, which I'm all for, even though it was interesting to not kind of see it and to kind of go around it at the start of the series. To actually finally see it was really quite devastating because I actually cared for Arthur as a character and didn't actually realize it until the time. And he's the real father to those boys. And then to see the image of the crab on his body, it was quite horrible, to be honest. So yeah, didn't mind that. But then as soon as the alien started talking, no, not into it.
By the way, I was setting you up for a joke there. What does one crustacean say to another? What? Stop being so shellfish.
Incredible. Wow. Where is there to go after that?
That might be the mic drop. No. But another question I have for you is, so, maybe the next scene or soon thereafter, we see Sylvia going to lay the flowers at the gravesite like she normally does. And she's about to be attacked by the alien, same alien. The other one's the little baby alien. We see it at the very end hanging out with the other one. So cute. But I didn't like that either, by the way. But it looks like when they shoot at it, he gets hit in the head and then runs off. But these look like rubber bullets or something. Like, are they using? I mean, they need to be using heavy artillery against these things. Are these people morons?
They are morons. I just kept thinking they were missing. I don't know. They actually did shoot it. So shouldn't we see acid spill?
Yeah, I mean, like in Aliens, like these things are bleeding out ooze everywhere.
Yeah, no, not into it. Just that whole set of as they walk through the forest next to that kind of cliff line, there's the graves just sitting there.
Yeah.
I mean, it just didn't sell it for me at all. I thought it was dumb in the last episode. I thought it was dumb in this episode as well. Poor old Sylvia. She doesn't get much to do. Just put a flower on. No, I wasn't into it. Yeah,
I know. Poor Essie Davis. They used her very poorly towards the end of the series.
They really did.
All right, my next stop here in the plot line is when they decide to do the ghost thing and let's haunt this house. Of course, this is something that has happened in other alien films too, the whole idea of this ship being a haunted house. But we actually see Wendy popping up on the computer screens, listening in on conversations, which I think is a little corny. Like, why would, if you had this ability, why would your face pop up on the screen? I mean, I know they're letting us know that she's listening in, but there's just subtler ways to do this. This is my pet peeve there. But in general, what do you think of how they explored this idea that she can interface with this technology? She has a superpower, basically. No one knew she was going to have this. She's the only one that has it. Like the others haven't been able to figure this out. And somehow I guess it's associated with her ability to communicate with the aliens too. Like, is this something that, I mean, for me, they needed to, like, let's say that they wanted to say that this is what we were hoping for. We knew that some people, and this was just kind of a trial balloon, we knew some people would have this ability to transcend what, humanity even is, or something like that. And that this is what they were looking. They seem caught off guard by this, and they haven't explained it in any way. And once again, me being negative about the episode and maybe the season in general, it feels like it's just a plot contrivance so that we can do, like, so she can have magic powers, basically.
Completely agree. Cavalier mentioned it way back, that it was interesting that she could flick through. Oh, she can do that now. She can flick through the video screens, but then it was completely dropped, and I don't understand why. Also, just seeing them in the big set, they must love this jail cell set, because they used it quite often in this episode. The last I remember, they were on a boat, and there was a big standoff, and there was an alien kind of flicking through in the outer. All of a sudden, they're in jail. They're being captured. I mean, I couldn't make the jump from last episode to this episode. It just seemed very convenient because they wanted them to act like these ghosts in the system.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. I didn't even think about that. But when they caught them at the boat and they have to, like, march them back through the woods, these, like, we've seen them jump and, like, scale mountains or drop off of mountains. They could have just, like, even if they had guns to the back of their heads, they couldn't just make a break for it, like superhuman speed. I don't know how they were. I mean, I guess they allowed themselves to be captured because, it doesn't make any sense that they're now just conveniently just walk their way back into the prison and just acquiesce the whole way.
Yeah, I like what you say is a plot contrivance.
Yeah, exactly.
just to get them back there. Yeah.
So much plot contrivance here in this episode, by the way. Okay, we do get Kirsch and Murrow they fight each other. What'd you think of this scene?
A little bit of a letdown again. I was talking with my brother-in-law. He was like, oh, it's great to finally see Kirsch and Murrow. And we were kind of texting at the same time, but we both came to the conclusion that it just wasn't enough. Although I did quite love the image of Kirsch with his broken back and finally the white spew coming out of him, as all androids need to do. But yeah, it wasn't enough. It was, and we'll get to it.
Yeah.
But no one dies. We'll get to it at the end.
Oh my
God.
No
one bloody dies in this thing.
Yep.
But yeah, what did you think of the final, their little showdown in the lab?
Yeah, I mean, I thought actually that it was good. It was, like, well staged, and it was fun. It was like, showing that, you think Murrow might get the drop on Kirsch, but no, of course you knew he was going to know he was there. And then, all of it goes back and forth, but it needed to be more exciting, right? Like, you needed to do, I mean, we've seen Terminator 2. We've seen this before. We need to have these, like, two unstoppable beings going at each other, and you need to ramp it up a little bit. So I felt it was a little too quick. It should have been a little bit, more developed. But worse than that, I think the reason it's so deflating is because it now seems like a big mistake to have gone to that space episode, which was so good, and then come back. It seems like we kind of lost the focus of what we were supposed to be paying attention to, because we were so excited to see these two go at it, And now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, that too. Like, it's just like they're just dotting I's and crossing T's. Like, we got to do this, we got to do this. It was just a checklist episode, Like, I was like, what is happening here? Nothing that was supposed to pay off. First of all, very little paid off at all. But then this at least would be a payoff. And even this is so muted. It's like kind of like, okay, I guess, it was all kind of just meh at best.
Yeah, their verbal sparring has been so good through the series. And I can't remember any lines from their little fight. And their fight actually wasn't super exciting anyway. Nope. So there wasn't the physical, there wasn't the verbal. Just a bit of a letdown.
Yeah, Morrow talks about John Henry, and a little bit of this goes back and forth.
That's right.
Where he said, he was able to beat the machines. And Kirsch says, didn't John Henry die? Which is true. He dies at the end of that parable. But Morrow is not getting that point. And he says, man always wins. It's a matter of will. But I find it very funny. At least here, the thing that came to mind is that the monologuing, getting him monologuing is what lets him get the drop on him. So that's they may have the willpower, but if the human villains in these movies continue to want to monologue, they'll always get defeated.
Funny. Yeah, of course.
I always think about Syndrome in The Incredibles. You sly dog, you got me monologuing.
Yeah.
Or we find out that Adam is a synthetic and probably the dad that he built back when he was 6 years old.
Okay, so this scene, when we find out that he's a synthetic, so this was my favorite scene of the episode, and I thought it was actually really, really cool to see Hermit go into the room with the alien in the sheep. Or was he in the sheep? I think he was, or maybe he was out of the sheep.
No, he's in the sheep.
No, he was in the sheep.
Yeah.
And he was in the corner, and you can see the door open. And I was like, great, this was fantastic. And then as it continued on with Wendy confronting Atom, and we found out that he was a synthetic, which was a surprise to me. I feel like did we talk about that? We thought that he was, but I'd completely forgotten that. So I thought that was a really cool twist. This was a fantastic scene in a pretty bad episode.
Yeah. I agree. This is the best scene in the episode. I like the effect just of this actor with just his eyes moving. That definitely was a combination of CGI to make him look that still, just his eyes move. So it's a combination of performance and CGI, but looks really good. I agree. I don't know if we ever speculate on the fact that Adam was maybe in passing, we said maybe he's a robot. I mean, but I honestly did think he was probably a person, which is a clever thing in the show that, of course, he designed this guy to be like, yeah, he was just my dad. And now we just felt like he's some guy who's been with him from a long time, working with him. And, he's like hiding in plain sight in a way, right? So it worked exactly accordingly. So that was clever. But even that, just finding that out so late in the game, I don't know what it adds to anything. And the one critique I have of this is that I did find it, again, just a convenience that we have Wendy she has multiple times where she can kill this alien thing, and she doesn't trap it in the cage. She just kicks it around like a hacky sack or something, and then it eventually escapes into the cables. But it could have done that at first, like when she just he's like, man, I'm outmatched here now that she's here, and just made its escape. Then to have this whole, it just doesn't make any sense that, if she can get her hands on this thing multiple times, she should have just killed it. And so once again, I'm like, why is this thing surviving in the moment in this particular case? It's purely contrivance. Again, it's just like, we just need a scene where it's on the loose and it attacks, and then we need to have it escape anyway. But except for the silliness of some of the decisions there, I did think it was really clever. I also like the fact that Hermit thinks really fast, right? He jumps into the cage, which is smart, right? It'll keep it out. That's where it was actually contained. And then, of course, it's smart going well, I know how to get in there. That they feed me through this chute back here. So the one mistake Hermit makes, though, is when he gets in there, you slam the thing shut on him, and there you go. You caught it again. So
yeah. I really like him, and I think he's done a really good job throughout the series. There's just not enough of him. Maybe because he's the only real likable human that I feel like I want to see more of him, rather than these hybrid children robot things. And we also found out that once the eye leaves the body, leaves the sheep falls over dead.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we were hoping it was some kinder, gentler version of that, but no. The sheep is there. Yeah, I was wondering. He's like, the sheep just going to wander around afterwards, being like, hey, what happened to my eye? But nope, he's dead.
Something popped up in my feed. So Halloween costumes are popping up in my feed. And there was a guy dressed in like a sheep's costume with the eye in his eye. I thought it was fantastic. Just looked like a very cheap kind of furry sheepskin costume. But this eye was fantastic detail popping out of his head. I was like, yeah, he wins.
Oh, and we find out a little bit more about the creatures here. We know what the plant thing is now. It's like some kind of giant Venus flytrap, I guess.
Another disappointment.
Yep.
For me, I actually was interested. Okay, so it's an animal. Remember we were wondering whether it was flora or fauna. Well, it's kind of both, but it's an animal, but it didn't really do much. I mean, it just swallowed that girl, kinda. Yeah, I expected more of that, of the whole build up of that thing. I wanted to see it do something even more terrible than what it did. Yeah.
And once again, what purpose does it even serve to introduce it here late in the game? That we've been waiting all season for this, and you're thinking like, well, it's got to be a big payoff, and it kills one person, and then they get abducted by Nibs afterwards, so we don't know what happens to it after that. As a matter of fact, Slightly said that he specifically says the eye thing is missing and the plant thing is missing, and I'm like, yeah, that's what everybody on Earth is calling it, the plant thing and the eye thing. But and we don't know any. I mean, we know nothing else about it. And once again, why do we even care about this thing this late in the game? If they were basically going to leave the whole show on a cliffhanger, and that's what we have, right? We end up with this whole thing on a cliffhanger. To your point earlier, they didn't kill anybody. They didn't make any decisions. That's what's so frustrating to me about this. In my solo recap, I said, I'm sick of this cliffhanger. Ending your season on a cliffhanger is for cowards.
Completely agree. One of my pet hates is especially a first season. Maybe if you've 2 or 3 seasons, maybe do it. Sure, like Succession was really good in kind of making something right at the end, but it wasn't necessarily a cliffhanger. It was like just something to turn the whole tables to get you to think about things differently. But I mean, I think back to that season of Yellow Jackets that I saw, the only season that I saw, because it had such a bad cliffhanger ending of that first season, and this really reminds me of it. They did nothing. They killed nobody. What is it all for? To get that image at the end with them all in the cell and with the bloody aliens hanging off the cell as little cute pets.
Yep.
Come on,
pets. Yeah, I know. Like, this is alien Earth. This is like the this first season of this, and and if you want to speculate on season 2, which I did think to myself, like, honestly, and maybe this is the bigger question for you, would you see a season 2? I'm just picturing, even if I say in this moment that, yeah, I'm somewhat interested in a season 2, unless this thing is in production right now, and it's not, because I read an interview with Noah Hawley this morning, and they're like negotiating for season 2. So to get the negotiations done, to write the scripts, to get the crew back together, and then this show, think about the logistics of this show. The post-production is like a 1-year process, right? You think about how it took 2 years to make Severance. This is going to take more than 2 years from beginning to end to make this show. So if they start in the next 3 or 4 months, which I doubt they will, we're looking at 2.5 years, maybe 3 years from now. In 3 years, will I care at all or even remember this show? I don't know. This is a big mistake, and they spent a fortune on this, and I can't imagine me watching another season of this.
Well, look, of course I'll watch it because it's Alien. If I've still got Disney Plus at that stage. But maybe my disappointment would have left me in 2 or 3 years, so that I won't remember it so harshly that I will be interested in watching it, because I do love sci-fi. I love big budget sci-fi, especially in television form. And it's so rare to find really good stuff, even though this isn't that good. The one thing that I really enjoyed, let's be a little bit positive, is Arthur. So yeah, I don't know how Alien made his way from the lab all the way to the beach.
All the way to the beach. He really hooked it.
All the other dead bodies and chewed up alien food.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And crabs and all sorts of things. But he found Arthur. Even though Arthur's body is not in great shape, the alien thinks that he's the one to get into.
And he couldn't grab one of those military guys that, like, to your point,
exactly.
You make a really good point. That place is full of dozens of dead military folks that he could crawl into if he wanted to. But no, he decides to make it all the way to the beach and find Arthur.
So that's good. I enjoyed that. I want to see Arthur. I think that was a cool little twist, and the reuniting of Arthur and Dame Sylvia will be very interesting too.
Will be interesting now for sure. I was also thinking about this poor actor, if he's in the next season, which I assume he would be at this point, has to put on all this makeup every time. Everyone else will just be in regular, costume, and he'll have to be, decomposing on screen for the next 3 or 4 months. I said that's a fun thought. I said he is married. The actor himself is married to Zazie Beetz, though. So, you take the good with the bad.
Is he just?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Good on him.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. So let's get to the very end of the episode. Of course, there's Arthur and, his reanimation rather than reincarnation. And but more importantly is, of course, we have Wendy at the end and all the other hybrids around her saying, what do we do now that we've caught all everybody? And she says, now we rule. And I actually think that the song they should have ended on was not Animal by Pearl Jam. They should have ended on School's Out Forever. It would have been more apropos, I think.
Yeah, the whole song at the end got a bit meh as well by the end of these episodes, right? We thought that they were really relating to themes and we're all, from a particular genre, but they kind of splayed out here and there, and they didn't really do much for me by the end. Not that I'm not a Pearl Jam fan, but it's just like, okay. All right.
I'm not a huge fan of that song, but I do like a lot of Pearl Jam songs.
Yeah, so this episode was called, was it We Are the Real Monsters or Who
the
Are the
Real Monsters? Yeah.
So the hybrids are the real monsters, is that right?
I think people are the real monsters. Aren't the humans the real monsters?
That's what I was assuming, that people were going to be the real monsters. So now the hybrids are the ones, and they think that they can take over the island, which is being invaded by Yutani forces, which is kind of cool.
That is kind of cool, but that's the other thing I was wondering for myself, like what happens in season 2? Like what's the pitch? I assume they pitched this. I mean, you end the season on a cliffhanger. I'm sure they're asking, well, what's season 2? So what's the pitch that it's going to just take place on the island and Weyland Yutani is invading? And does it end like with Ex Machina where, Wendy decides to walk off into the sunset, into the world? And, what does she like, throw a stick at the alien, go like, you stay here, get away, go away.
I've had enough of the island. Surely you can't just be set on the island again. But
I don't know what maybe they'll leave relatively quickly, but it seems like that is the immediate next course of action, and they can't just jump a year ahead or something, I assume. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe that's exactly what they'll do. They'll just jump years ahead and say, now Wendy and Kirsch has been repaired and is now working in Weyland Yutani. But I mean, I can't imagine that. I assume we're going to see the immediately aftermath of this. And if that's going to drag on for a season, that's something I'm not interested in seeing.
And we assumed Boy Cavalier was going to die or get alien or something, and nothing. But surely his company is, his company wasn't all on the island, so his company's not decimated, even though the heads aren't decimated either. Just a few army grunts are gone. So I guess Prodigy can still be around as a company. I bet he can call his forces to battle the Utah, but there's no interest in that. I mean, I don't get it.
Okay, one more thing. I just remembered that made me irrationally furious when I was watching the show. It made me so angry because all the way they use different monetary scales here on the show drove me nuts. But if that has bothered me, and I've brought it up here on the podcast before, nothing bothered me more than when he's prancing around going like, hey, whoever can get me out of here, I'll give you $1 million. $1 million. In this world, if you are on this island and you are a trillionaire, like what is $1 million? Is that like what's that that's what the cost of a car in this universe, I would presume.
I knew that would annoy you. As soon as he said that, I knew it.
$1 billion. Okay. $1 billion. Sure. You're a trillionaire. You'll give away 1/1000th of your wealth to have someone save you from a life and death situation. $1 million. What is that? You make that in 15 minutes.
I was getting excited though when he's all by himself and there's a bit of dripping going around. I didn't see any chains, but I was feeling like there was something following him, and there was, but nothing tore him to shreds, which I was really hoping for.
Okay, so here is despite the fact that I did not like this episode and I do not think the season worked, I do have a little bit of a deeper read here that I think that Noah Hawley's trying to get to. And actually, believe it or not, I think thematically he's trying to say the same thing that Andor said, believe it or not. Although Andor did it much better, and Andor obviously did it on a much bigger canvas. But I think what he's basically trying to say is that, like in the moment, Hermit trying to be performatively, like care about everybody who's around him. He's worried about. He asked Murrow, "Are you okay?" He worries, and then when Murrow, hits the guy in the head very easily, by the way, very easily escapes from that prison cell. But when he, says, "Don't kill him," so it's like in the moment, he's being compassionate. But what Wendy tells him eventually is that you have to like take a stand. We have to fight back. That if we are always just going with the flow and saying it's complicated and it's it's difficult and you don't understand, you're just a kid. And that is how these giant corporations have taken control. And while everybody argues about, oh, this is complicated, it's too complicated to come up with a plan, too complicated to fight back, that they have literally, in the context of this world, have taken over, replaced democracy basically with these giant corporations. And I think he's trying to say that that is actually the world we live in now, and that's the direction we're going into, and that Hermit's philosophy doesn't work in this world. And then Wendy is telling him, don't tell me it's complicated. That is what's her quote is literally says that that's what people say, powerless people say, so that they can do nothing and say that that's okay. So
yeah, great line.
Yeah, it is a great line. And I think that is basically the theme of this episode and maybe of the entire season and the kind of the point of it all. Although, like I said, I don't think it's that successful, but I do think that's what he's striving for. And, maybe there's some complexity here. I think the simple answer that, hey, you just have to protest and you get what you want is also simplified. So I think maybe the setup here thematically is that now at the end, now she gets to rule. And of course, we know from watching Game of Thrones and watching all these other shows that a lot of times people who have the best intentions, once they're in power, either because the reality is, hey, it really is complicated to hold power, or maybe just that power itself is innately destructive and seductive, that things are not going to go so well. So maybe that is what will be explored in the next season of the show. That remains to be seen.
Yeah, that's interesting. What's the quote? Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely.
Something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so yeah, no, that's good. I like that. I mean, Andor was all about rebellion.
Right.
I mean, you could really get behind the little guy, whereas Hermit's kind of the little guy in this. He's the medic.
Interesting.
He's supposed to be,
that they're in both shows.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, completely different characters. Yeah,
Sure.
You almost forget. But Wendy is so powerful.
Yep.
And now she's got all these magic Wi-Fi tricks and alien pets. I mean, she's super powerful.
Yes.
So yeah, so you brought up Game of Thrones. So the Dragon Queen. Yeah. So now she's got her own dragons that she can control. The fact that she has control of the alien not tearing Hermit to bits frustrates me as well. I mean, he should be absolutely terrified when this thing is around. Like Cavalier says, what does he say? He's, I think I pissed my pants. I mean, everybody should be doing that when this alien is in the room. So yeah, okay. I'm just trying to follow your thought. And Wendy is going to be this thing. Is she still going by the name Wendy? The other girl,
she's going by Marcy, I think.
Name.
Yeah. Most of them have now started to go by their original names. So I don't know if she's going by, I don't know if anybody addressed her as Marcy or Wendy in this episode. That's a good question, though.
And did the whole Peter Pan thing pay off? She mentioned it in the final scene.
She says that you say you're Peter Pan, but you're not. You're actually, I was like waiting for her to make some other kind of literary metaphor, but instead she says, you're a mean man and you always have been, a mean old man and you've always have been. And he really takes this badly, by the way, because of course he does not want to be old. I do want to shout out that I think they did, maybe he's always looked this way and I just haven't looked that closely, but I think there was something that was done in the way they photographed him here that he looked really haggard and he started just looking like a guy who's probably like 40 who's trying to pass himself off as a 20-year-old. He started looking a little creepy in that way.
Yeah, like that tech guy that exists that tries to make himself look younger, but he actually looks even more fake and weird.
Just looks strange.
Yeah. Poor old Dame Sylvia. What has she done to be locked up in a cage with these people? I mean, come on.
I mean, yeah, she wasn't perfect, but I mean, she did have good intentions. And, but once again, I think that is part of the critique that's being made of rebellion. And you make an interesting point that I wasn't complete in what I was saying as well, in the fact that this may go beyond the simplified, not the simplified perspective, but the main focus of Andor, where it is like, resisting is important, and even tiny little rebellions and little constantly, it does chip away at this power structure. So there's more about the value of rebellion. And I think that here we are like seeing like Wendy is basically standing up and saying we need to rebel. But I think, like you said, she now is incredibly powerful. So I think it's going to, if they continue this story, I think it's going to be more of something like Game of Thrones, where you see how eventually, once you take that power, it inevitably corrupts who you are. And I think that remains to be seen if that's the direction they go in. But I think that is probably what will be explored beyond this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you too. But I mean, anyone who has seen this series and has a responsibility to greenlight a season 2 is going to say, "Hey Noah, that episode 6, that one, do more of that,
more of that."
And that's what we want to see, right? But I don't know how they're going to shoehorn something like that into this, because that was so awesome and such a highlight.
Well, the other part of that too is you have to remember that in the universe of Alien, they're like 2 years before the Nostromo launches in the first Alien movie, and theoretically, I guess they want aliens because they don't have them, so they need to go get more of those eggs. So I assume Waitani, whatever happens on this island, maybe the aliens don't survive, and then, or maybe they can't reproduce because they're drones. They need a queen or eggs, one or the other, to be able to reproduce. So maybe that's why they sent them back out there. So if you logic it out, maybe the next season would get us to the launch of that ship. Maybe. I don't know.
And that's something to be interested in, to kind of connect it to the greater lore. I'm not sure if they're trying to do that, but yeah, I'm kind of into that. I think that's fun to put the puzzle pieces together, even though I'm not always interested in prequels, but this is kind of like a sidequel.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really that interested, honestly, in seeing it all come together. I'm just trying to think like, they're setting this thing not like 20 years before the Alien movie. They're setting it 2 years before the Alien movie. It seems like they have some kind of point where it would intersect with the events of that series, or at least there's a time box as to where these events would make sense in that world, right?
Yeah, totally. So if you wanted to connect it, you could, because you've thought about it. Yeah.
By the way, I didn't finish that thought. That what I was saying about like that, the kind of different show it might be. I think that you mentioned like how they kind of did Sylvia dirty. I think that is kind of the critique, right? You have these different versions of people who think they're doing the right thing. Like I'm just a soldier. I'm just doing what I'm being told to do. I need this job. But basically, in the end, the moral opinion, I think, of the show is that all these people are facilitating this underlying corrupt corporate power structure, right? So, and she's part of that, right? Because even if she's just like, I'm just trying to, keep them calm, I'm trying to be a surrogate mom for them. And even if her intentions are good, in the end, she's just facilitating this corporation that in the end is looking at them as floor models. Literally, he says that to them. And not only that, but just experiments like these aliens. They're no different than these creatures that they've captured. They have to, spend more time, massaging their egos and keeping them calm because of their underlying humanity. But that's just an irritation as far as, Boy Cavalier is concerned.
That's a really good point. I mean, she's part of the machine, isn't she? And
exactly.
She knows who she's working for. She knows Boy Cavalier is an absolute, and she probably feels a bit conflicted as well, because her husband or lover, Arthur, kind of almost stood by his beliefs.
Yep.
And even though he got fired, he didn't really want to get fired, but he wouldn't do, I forget what he had to do, but he wouldn't do what Boy Cavalier wanted, whereas Sylvia would do it and said she could do it. So yeah, you're right. She is part of it.
Yeah. And I think that's the criticism that's being made there to these characters. But yeah, I mean, I'm sounding more positive on it thematically than I really am. The reality is, from a point of view of just being a show, where were the stakes? Where was the arc here? what ended. Like, there's not even like Hermit dies and she now is like lost. She's untethered from her humanity. Now she has to make a choice. Nothing is decided by the end of this episode. It's like literally we're in the middle of the story. It's like really not. You compared it to Yellow Jackets. Yellow Jackets, something cataclysmic happens at the end of the first episode where basically very much that parallel I just described, where these two girls, in the end, one of them, spoilers for Yellow Jackets, one of them is dead. And now this person who's is unraveling is just spiraling out. So at least you have that one huge thing that happens at the end of that season, which I don't think is a fully successful season either. But here, we don't even get that. There's no decision made, as far as being a writer and deciding like, what's my point of view and which characters survive to the next day. I'm not deciding anything now. I'm like, what do you mean you're deciding anything now? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's the biggest worry, isn't it? Is that they just didn't top anybody. I mean,
right? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, have something for us to feel. I guess we felt for Arthur last week, but then he's back. He'll be back. So yeah, don't feel too sad.
Well, I mean, Eileen is back. The actor's back, but not the character.
I don't know. I mean, at the start of the series, we were so excited about the aliens, what they were going to do, these different alien life forms, and how dangerous are they. It should be so. I did enjoy. There were bits in the lab where you could see the little baby alien. You saw other different aliens. You saw some cages were open. That should be the thing that I'm worried about, is these things getting out. But they just didn't make that as impactful as they should have.
Yeah, absolutely not. I agree. By chance, okay, so let's introduce the next series very quickly.
Let's do that. Yeah,
we're not going to be able to break it down here at all, but that's okay. We will save that for next week. But so, given the fact that the Savant has been backburnered for now, another show that I was very much looking forward to, and I watched the first 2 episodes of it last night, is The Lowdown, the new Sterling Harjo series written by Sterling Harjo. Am I saying his name right? Where are my notes?
Yeah, it's spelled a bit funny. I did see that he was basically the first 5 credits at the end of the show. He's written it, created it, directed it, he did everything.
Write it. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And who also made Reservation Dogs, also for FX, by the way, very successful Emmy-winning series, of course. And starring Ethan Hawke, who worked in Reservation Dogs and an excellent episode of Reservation Dogs. I think appeared in only a couple episodes, but very important episodes of the show. And now I guess that's where they started this relationship. And they're making this kind of sun-drenched, shaggy, sunny noir set in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we will be covering this show from week to week. 2 episodes are available now. The 3rd episode will premiere in the same slot. If you guys have been watching Alien Earth, it'll be premiering in the same slot on TV at that hour or on Hulu the next morning. And so we will cover all 3 of those first episodes. But I watched the first 2, and I wanted to see this because I thought I like this genre basically in general, by the way. But then I also just thought the trailer was so funny. And I got to tell you, Darren, I saw both of these episodes. I don't know if you got to see both of them, but especially episode 1, absolutely hysterically funny. How did you like this if you watched it?
Yeah, I watched the pilot. I haven't seen the 2nd episode yet. And I must admit, I didn't see the trailer for this. I didn't know anything about this. And I feel like Tulsa, Oklahoma, I should know a little bit more about that place. I feel like that's got a lot of importance to the story, where I don't really understand that. Whether that's an American thing, I'm not sure. But it's almost like a film noir, which I know you love film noirs. Set mostly during the day in this town. So yeah, I'm not sure what to make of it just yet. The music selection is superb. I don't know any of these tracks, but they're amazing. And Ethan Hawke is very lovable, but also dislikable
exactly
in this role. And really interesting side characters. I had fun with it, but I don't know why.
This is, I mean, that is what is interesting about this. What you're describing is the vibe that I like of this genre. So, I mean, I think people will watch this and think of The Big Lebowski right away. I don't think this is Big Lebowski. In some ways, it is. It's definitely, they even have Tim Blake Nelson here, who has worked with the Coen brothers before. So obviously, Sterling Harjo doesn't not want you to think about the Coen brothers, who, of course, made all their films are noirs as well. So this is, like you said, a sunny noir. If anyone's ever seen Terriers, a great show that only lasted one season, but in that genre. And this is a pretty well-trod genre, by the way. Like High Desert on Apple TV came out last year, not very successful. Oftentimes, not a very successful genre, let me say. But I'm a fan of these shows in general. And I like that it's really more about the vibe. It's more about the hang. The soundtrack, of course, is extraordinary because like the entire Reservation Dogs soundtrack is nothing but incredible songs that you have never heard before. And all usually from the 70s. So Sterling Harjo loves this genre. Like, I guess he just does a lot of crate digging and he loves putting these songs in his shows, but the vibes are fantastic. But man, I just think about like the opening scene where you meet Ethan Hawke and exactly what you described. That's my relationship with Ethan Hawke. I think they're using his persona so well because he is this guy who is like this very self-aware and like kind of very aware of his own persona, but still very overly earnest. And still, like you said, it's someone you love and are irritated by simultaneously. And it's almost as if they're using that celebrity persona he has and weaponizing it here in the role. And the biggest compliment I'll make to the writing in general, but to all of the performers here, is that when you hear this dialogue come out of his mouth, for example, you never don't feel like this is the character speaking in his own voice. Like you never feel like he's making a performance. Like you just think he's saying these things off the top of his head. I just love the fact that, for example, when he's getting beat up by those neo-Nazis, that he's like angry that they're saying that it's a newspaper, and he goes, "It's a long form magazine." He has to make his point, even as he's getting the shit beat out of him. And he gets beat up so many times. It's like a running gag. He just gets more and more beat up over the course of this show.
It's cool. Yeah. I'm trying to think. There were certain scenes where it harked back to some old Ethan Hawke movies, and I can't remember which ones they were, but we've seen him in so many different roles that you really know the guy now.
Right.
And yeah, it's interesting you said Big Lebowski. There is a bit of Coen brothers in this, isn't there?
Yes.
And about the clue. There's all these clues in books, and you follow this, and then it's a little bit. Yeah. What else? Oh, Killer Mike is in it. So Killer Mike.
Killer Mike. Yep.
Yeah. He plays a good role, and also Kyle MacLachlan. I didn't even recognize him. I just saw him in the credits.
Yeah, he darkens his hair, and so I guess it's episode 2. So he's much more recognizable once he paints his hair. So, but yeah, I didn't catch him at first either, and then they colored his hair, and I was like, oh my god, it's Kyle MacLachlan. But yeah, so. Who else is there? Macon Blair is here, by the way. He's the drunk lawyer who's his next door neighbor.
It's funny,
which is funny because he's also a director and a writer and an actor, of course. But he just directed the new Toxic Avenger film, and he directs some of these episodes, by the way. So he's in front of the screen and behind the screen here as well. But yeah, a great cast. I hear there's a lot of other celebrities. Jean Triplehorn is here. One of my crushes from the 90s, from all those erotic thrillers she made. But there's like a lot of, there's a lot of other celebrity cameos and appearances yet to come. And I just am really digging the vibe. And it is like a genre, if you read these books as well, like this is very much in the mode of like Carl Hyacin, who sets all his films, his noirs, and not his books, not his films, in Florida. And similarly to this, I think is a simple as a template where not only is it a very sunny noir like I described before and has similar vibes, but also like they are addressing actual cultural events like the corporate takeover of or forced gentrification of parts of Florida, etc., and then puts that into a murder mystery. And I think that that's the same template we're going to see here, where Oklahoma is a very complex history, by the way. Obviously, Reservation Dogs set there too. Also where Killers of the Flower Moon was set, so has a very complex history. is where they allowed black men to be free, and then we had Black Wall Street, and then of course they bombed Black Wall Street. So it's a very complicated relationship that occurs there, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to use some of this is going to get infused into this mystery as it unravels.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon, and also was the Watchmen TV series set there as well. Yeah, okay. So that's my only reference points for this town. So it seems very racially diverse and motivated for drama. And this guy Sterling Harjo, I mean, I haven't seen all of Reservation Dogs, but what I love is he loves the characters so much. Mm-hmm. And it really comes through that you fall in love with all these disparate characters, and they were all teenagers and just losers but lovable, and all these different types, these different mix. Whereas in this show, there's, like you say, there's drunks, there's gangsters, neo-Nazis, there's the black newspaper, which is like a tabloid newspaper editor, hilarious,
and a sex rag too. So, there's also pornography. As well.
That's right. And I love that he writes for that as well. He writes for and he writes books, and he wants to be. What did he say? Would you like something about? He wrote a book, but it wasn't successful. But it didn't really matter because he wrote it. I can't remember what the line was when he was talking to his daughter. But the fact that he's kind of like the dude is
exactly
so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's definitely has the dude vibes, but I would say that the dude, a couple of differences there, definitely from the Big Lebowski, is that is obviously not actually a murder mystery. As opposed to this one. But also it's the fact that, the dude is just kind of hanging out. Like he's not really doesn't really have an agenda, where this guy definitely has an agenda. Now, whether he's good at that or not, is a separate question, but he definitely has an agenda. He actually is pretty good at his job, although he does end up getting punched in the face many, many times. He needs to get better at putting his fists up for sure.
Oh, and Keith David as well.
Yes, of course.
Having Keith David in the thing is always awesome.
Oh my God, Keith David. Yeah, I'm going to spoil slightly your second episode, but at the beginning, he's talking about how he loves this guy. I've always been so admirer of your writing. And by the end of episode 2, speaking of being irritated by him, he can't take him anymore. And he is screaming in his face. And he goes, I thought it was your favorite writer. And Keith David says, never meet your heroes.
Very true.
So, you got another episode to watch, and you'll enjoy it. I do think episode 1 is just packed with all these character introductions. So smart, so fast, and is the better of the 2 episodes. But it's still just the vibes are immaculate, as they say, and it's great fun. So we'll do a much deeper dive into that in the first 3 episodes of that next week, and I'll probably have a review of One Battle After Another on Friday.
Cool. Yeah, looking forward to it. Well, that's good. I thought we'd have a lot to talk about this episode, and at least we had some positive things to talk about rather than all negative things.
I mean, there's some positive things in Alien too. I just don't think that I just don't think there's definitely positives in the production, obviously, and in some of the ideas there. But, as a season finale, I mean, I'm not even kidding about this, Darren. I'm the one who's been pitching on the show over and over again. This is the season finale. I literally got to the end of the episode. I'm like, I guess I was wrong. That wasn't the season finale.
Yeah. Well, I was having a very mixed day yesterday, and then I got a text from you saying WTF, and I was like, oh, okay. Is that a good text or a bad text? Whatever it is, this episode is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Unfortunately, interesting in a negative way, mostly, I think. All right, Darren, thank you again for the conversation, and enjoy the movie. And I can't wait to hear your opinion of it. And we'll probably discuss it next week when we get back together.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Victor.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.